Alex Mozet, and welcome to Winner Take All, where we talk about the constant battle between large tech monopolies and traditional incumbents. And so today, just this past week, we learned that Wish confidentially files to go public. It's kind of ironic, they confidentially file, yet everyone finds out. But, really what they mean by confidentially filed is that you don't see, all the disclosures of the filing yet. So this is a draft registration that they submitted to the SEC, but they're not disclosing their financial information or how many shares they're offering. And from that, you could kind of back out a valuation. So we don't really know roughly where Wish is trying to value itself when they go public, but they are starting the IPO process. So what is Wish? And, what is this company all about? Basically, Wish is a product marketplace. They're valued at about $11 billion. They've raised $1.6 billion in equity capital. They have big funders. They have PE investors. They have obviously VC investors. But it's a marketplace. And so you would ask yourself, that's interesting, right? A marketplace is filing to go public in 2020. When Amazon is clearly that large tech monopoly, how would a startup be able to compete against Amazon, right? And the answer is, well, they didn't do it with their infrastructure and retail stores and existing customer base like Walmart has done. Instead, the answer is that they have a different supply base. And because of that supply base, the products that you find on Wish are going to be very different than the products you find on Amazon or just about many other places for that matter. And they're cheap. They're cheap products. And why are they cheap products? Because they pretty much all come from China. Pretty much 90-something% of all of them come from China. So there's a trend here that's been going on over the past number of years. We've kind of spoken to it here or there over the show at different moments. But the trend is Chinese manufacturers going direct to marketplaces. I had just been talking about, I pronounce it Anker. I guess it's actually supposed to be pronounced Anchor, but whatever. Anchor, tomato. That company just filed to go public like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I think in the Shenzhen stock exchange, Chinese stock exchange. That company is an example of a direct to Amazon product brand electronic company. Now they have a website, but when they first started, they didn't even bother making a website. They never put any emphasis on selling to the consumer through their own channels. The only emphasis of the company was to build a brand and build a distribution mechanism through Amazon, through the marketplace model. Basically, what Wish is doing is taking that and doing the marketplace version of that. It's taking this trend of having Chinese manufacturers sell through American marketplaces to American consumers, and is basically just saying, well, we're pretty much only going to focus on Chinese manufacturers to American consumers for cheap stuff. The downside of that is it takes a long time to ship the product from China to here. So if you go on Wish, you'll find like a screen protector for $1, versus if you buy that in Apple or actually for many of them on Amazon, you're probably spending at least $10, or if you're buying it from Apple, you're probably spending at least $20 or more. And so you go on Wish and you get it for $1. Why? Because it's coming from a Chinese manufacturer, but you have to wait maybe a month to get it, right? So over time, what Wish has invested in is to try and speed up the logistics and the fulfillment, right? So they've launched a program where on a select number of SKUs and products, you can get them in like 6 days or a week and a half or something like that, right? And then as we've seen with any of these e-commerce, doesn't have to be marketplace, e-commerce marketplaces, if you can decrease that fulfillment time, if you can get product to your customer faster, they like that and they will want to come back, right? So basically, Wish has invested a lot into how do we get product from Chinese manufacturers to customers in the United States faster than 4 weeks, 6 weeks, which is where they started at, and still there's a lot of products on that schedule. But the real story here is the growth of sellers, Chinese sellers on marketplaces. So let's look at Amazon. This is December 2017. China is a third of the Amazon marketplace. So a third of the Amazon sellers, there we go. There's the money chart. The blue-purple, some would say violet. The 34.4%, those are sellers from China. Based elsewhere, US or elsewhere, could also be Southeast Asia for that matter, are not from China, right? So this is specifically Chinese manufacturers, a little over a third. This is December 2017, okay? A little less than 3 years ago. Now, May 2019, it is now 40%. And here they're tracking, this site does good Amazon tracking, Marketplace Pulse. Here they're tracking all the different Amazons. These are the, these are the kind of European Amazons they're tracking. This is amazon.co.uk, new sellers, top locations. So this isn't even just, they're not only, I mean, this site is actually looking also at the European Amazon sites. So Chinese manufacturers are going into Amazon in Europe and obviously Amazon in the United States. And then here is March of 2020, March 19th of 2020. Chinese sellers flock to Amazon as factories recover. Remember, COVID originated in China. And, officially, I think they were tracking it in January. I think it was starting there sooner. Whatever. Point is, their factories were starting to recover right when we were starting to really get hit with it in the United States. So this is a March 19 where the Chinese factories are starting to recover, and now they're trying to meet the needs of, the American consumer. So look at this. Percentage of new Amazon.com sellers based in China. Look at that. I'll call this violet. That's 2020. You see that spike where January is about 45%. Boom, Feb it jumps down to about 33%. And then March, it's back up at 51%, right? Over half of the new sellers on Amazon.com in the United States are from China. They go on further to say the top sellers on the marketplace represent 49% of the sellers on Amazon. Furthermore, Chinese sellers outnumber US sellers on Amazon.com. You can see the Amazon.com top sellers, top 10,000, top 50,000, top 100,000. Look at that. Top 50,000, 58% are from China. Separately, there are marketplaces that are trying to get going. I think one is called MadeInAmerica.co. This is a Made in America marketplace. The challenge for the Made in America marketplace, MadeInAmerica.co, this one is frankly, go try and find leading American brands manufactured in the United States. I've done it. It's hard. It's very hard. And even the big names that you find, many of them are owned by either Chinese manufacturers or conglomerates that have operations elsewhere. So even some of them that are big, they might own that brand and they keep that brand manufactured in the United States, but it's actually owned by either a Chinese or an international kind of conglomerate company. Even when you factor in those companies, the numbers are very low for American brands and American brands with manufacturing in the United States. If you exclude, big machines, right? Cars, ATVs, boats, right? Like take those out of it. I'm talking more of your consumer product brands, your, for example, KitchenAid, the mixer in the kitchen. That's still made here. But you have like Crayola, KitchenAid, Whirlpool, for washing machines and that kind of stuff. Honestly, the list, it trickles off quickly, unfortunately. So, you've just seen, a huge degradation of American manufacturing over the past 20 plus years. And I don't know what else shows it than these graphs. I mean, look at this graph. It's sad to see, frankly. It's sad to see. So anyway, this is Wish's business in a nutshell. This is the trend that Wish has seized upon. Let's look at the graph for Wish. This is back November 2018. Same site. Love the site. Wish is a portal to China. Here's their graph. Wish marketplace merchants by country. Violet is the whole thing. That's China, 94%. So, okay. Let's go full circle. What do I think of the Wish IPO? I would run from this IPO. Why would I run from this IPO? This trend has clearly been growing, right? I mean, I got a million graphs here to show the trend of Chinese manufacturing increasing in the United States. However, I think that trend is going to run into headwinds in the coming years. So I think Wish is basically a play on whether or not you think Chinese manufacturing and buying products from Chinese manufactured products, directly to American consumers, is that trend going to increase or decrease or stay the same in the future? I think it's going to decrease. I think that you have two reasons for the decrease. One is what Wish has run into trouble doing is diversifying the products on Wish, right? So when you have products that are so cheap, it's just very hard. For the same reason Amazon needs to launch Amazon Luxury and keep it a separate entity. For the same reason that luxury brands don't want to be around, the other kind of run-of-the-mill textile brands on Amazon.com, is the same reason why even, let's say, if you have 3 tiers, luxury, run-of-the-mill, and made in China, then the luxury don't want to be near the run-of-the-mill, and the run-of-the-mill don't want to be near the made in China, right? The super cheap made in China. I'm not saying stuff made in China is all bad, but certainly if you're buying something for $1 where normally you could buy it for $10 to $20, yeah, I mean, you're not going for the quality purchase on that. So for the same reason that Amazon experiences with their luxury product has prevented Wish from being able to diversify the products on the marketplace, and that other brands want, or other sellers, just the demographics and the purchasing profile. If someone's on there to get a case for the phone for $1, right? It's very hard to graduate into other product segments that are more premium, or say made, in places that are just more expensive or of different quality, or whatever, however you want to classify it, right? It's very hard for them to move into adjacent kind of product categories with different levels of quality and price. So I think that's a challenge for them. That has been a challenge, and I haven't really seen anything changing that trend for them being Wish. Secondly, I think what you're starting to see and will continue to see, and we haven't seen from Wish yet, we haven't seen what happened when you had supply chain disruption due to COVID and Wish's business. So, we still don't have all the information about Wish and how they've encountered this, but I would say just directionally, if we think about, there's a huge desire to bring manufacturing back to the United States. We're still in the midst of COVID, but again, long term, if I think about where there's going to be just more challenges, whether from a trade perspective or supply chain issues, you're setting yourself up to be vulnerable if your whole business is based on Chinese manufacturers. Let's just put it that way. That's the exposure. To me, this is a bet on, basically where you see that trend going. And so I would definitely hedge myself on this one. Not to say there's anything wrong with Wish, or there's anything wrong with the business. It's just that's literally the whole supply chain is 94% from China, and they've been around for a while. They're very smart people. They've raised over $1.5 billion. They're not just going to change the business model on a whim. This is the business and is going to be the majority of the business and the revenue driver for many years to come. And so it could be challenged. So I think their urgency to go public is appropriate, because I would imagine that they want, that they might see some issues. I'm curious to see what's happened the past couple quarters now with tensions around the pandemic, supply chains, etc. Not that you're buying PPE off of Wish, but I think there's probably a good reason why there might be some urgency from the executives there to go public sooner rather than later. If I'm a little lukewarm, you could say, on Wish, I'm pretty bullish on this company. Patreon is raising around a $1.2 billion valuation. And the cool thing about this, it says they've raised a $90 million round of funding from fans of its own. So if you don't know what the company is if you're an artist, a musician, a content creator, fill in the blank, right? You have some kind of fan base. And if you want to help monetize that fan base, Patreon will help you do that. They will help you, provide subscription plans, and you can offer premium content. You can offer, premium products or exclusive access to the artists or the creators. You can kind of package up all these different offerings for your most dedicated fans, for your really diehard fans, who can subscribe and then get all those exclusive goodies, right? So they provide all of that. They have, they say that they were on track to pay $500 million out to artists on the site in 2019. And so they did, and had paid out $1 billion in aggregate since it was founded. So that's very strong growth. They're doing $500 million in 1 year. It's 50% of the overall dollars doled out to creators. That's very strong. It's a really cool business where they have, they said they have over 6 million patrons. So those would be fans, right? Have supported more than 200,000 creators. It's a very cool business. Lots of creators, content creators and artists and all these other kinds of things. Very unique, right? Who is competing with this business? Nice niche that has now turned this company into a unicorn business. So this company, I'm very bullish on. And actually what they've said, because of COVID, and if you're an artist, your income, right? A lot of your income would come from doing shows. So they have actually seen a huge boon to their business, because you have a huge amount of their creators are looking for alternative ways to monetize and, get an income. Being an artist is a tough life. Unless you've hit it big, you're living on peanuts. It's a difficult life. Services like this, platforms like this, really are a crucial way for artists to sustain themselves, especially during, a pandemic where you can't have shows. Kind of a difficult situation. Okay, last topic is there's news now that the DOJ is on an accelerated timeline to file antitrust charges against Google in the coming weeks, says the New York Times. The Attorney General is accelerating this. Career lawyers, I guess, are a little bit more reticent, and they wanted more time. They have 40 lawyers that are working on the case. Some argued this summer in a memo that ran hundreds of pages that they could bring a strong case but needed more time. You know why they're struggling and need more time? It's because they're not listening to this show. That much I can tell you. They're going to go after privacy. Here. Through YouTube, Google Search, Google Maps, and a suite of online advertising products, consumers interact with the company nearly every time they search for information. Making its time, right? It takes data from every interaction. Da, 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 da. This guy, Makan Del Rahim, I think he's an Iranian. Similar namesake as myself. I listened to him speak. I think it was at the Deal Book conference, the New York Times conference. I think that was fall of last year. Yeah, I think that was October of 2019. I was listening to this guy talk about how they were thinking about antitrust. You had Chris Hughes there, the guy, co-founder of Facebook, and they didn't have it dialed in. It was just very clear. They're still trying to pin this back on the consumer. This case is simple, and you don't need extra time. The case is made for you. There are a myriad of complaints by producers that have been wronged by Alphabet. And there's two buckets to that. Websites. We've talked on the show so many examples of websites that have so clearly documented Google favoring its own search results over theirs. Let's just take the hotel or travel industry, right? I mean, if you want to go book a hotel room, you look 5 or 10 years ago, we've done it on the show. We had Tim O'Reilly on the show talking about this with Google search, where you've got 3 pages of basically sponsored listings from Google on hotels. And if you want to be surfaced in those, you got to pay Google. And if you don't pay Google, then good luck, because you're going to be 3-page scrolls down before anyone's going to see your listings. And when the platform vertically integrates and competes directly against its suppliers, its producers, its creators, in this case, hotels or travel operators or travel providers, it starts to be very clear cut in terms of the platform favoring its own listings, not necessarily to provide a better, they'll say it's to provide a better experience, but really just so they can monetize more and sell more ads. You see this also with YouTube. Where YouTube gets into trouble is how they regulate their community of creators, right? So either banning creators, suspending creators, shadow banning posts, nuking them from the search result listings, and that's more of a content moderation issue. There are issues on both sides here. I think the easy layup is on Google search. It is clearly a monopoly. You have years and years and years of testimony from websites that have been competed against unfairly. Now, to the House's credit, we live streamed their congressional review. A few of the congressmen and women on that committee did a very good job grilling Sundar, Google, on exactly this point. They didn't even focus on the consumer and privacy issues. All they focused on was, hey, you had websites, you actually ripped the content off the website and then made it your own. And, you have deliberately crammed down people in search results to favor your own search results and charge more ads and yada. Sundar didn't have a good answer. It was a horrible answer. He wasn't very good at public speaking. Surprisingly, I don't know. He just kind of gave non-answers and kind of just murmured, and it was a letdown. Oh, and Sundar, when they asked Zuckerberg I think they asked maybe Sundar first. When they asked them about whether or not China had stolen their IP, he said, "Oh no, I don't think so." And then Zuckerberg said, "Yeah, absolutely, they steal IP." And then Sundar said, "I want to update my answer. I do remember that they actually stole IP from Google 10 years ago, and that's why we left China." So clearly, the guy just, he's just not. He didn't want to be very truthful until it was blatantly obvious what he was doing via Zuckerberg, basically calling him out. Anyway, I digress. Sundar, Google, search. If that's what they focus on, and by the way, you don't need 40 lawyers and months and months and months and months to put this together. This has been going on. It's well documented for years. That's the case. That's the case. Google search controls, 70+% of the search ad revenue business, probably 40+% of digital ads, and splits that duopoly with Facebook. And so they clearly have that kind of monopoly power in advertising. And then the question is, well, are they taking advantage of their customers? And all you need to do is make the linkage that website creators are considered a customer of Google search, which by the definition of the platform business model, producers are customers, right? You have two customers. You have a consumer, in this case, a website browser, a user, and a producer. And the producer is a customer, right? Actually, when you think about it, who is paying Google? It's not the consumer. It's the producer, right? That's the definition of a customer. The customer are the travel sites and a myriad of sites that have been taken advantage of by Google, where their organic search results get crammed down and they're forced to pay the gatekeeper, Google, for ads to be relevant and show up in the results. Right? That's the definition of customer. I'm paying you for a service. Customer, website creator, taken advantage of. Boom, case is done. What's my confidence the DOJ will thread the needle on this one? It's low. Unfortunately, it's low. And this article cements that suspicion. Why it's low? It's because, well, you know what else? You know what else gets me? Is this career lawyers. Oh boy. Oh boy. They've been trying to get these tech monopolies on antitrust for 20 plus years. So you don't want career lawyers on this, because clearly the career lawyers aren't understanding and aren't thinking about antitrust through the proper lens. And the fact that the career lawyers need more time does not give me confidence that they've got a good case. What they're probably trying to do, where they're probably getting hung up, is they're trying to go back to the consumer and pin this on the consumer, that because Google used the data and took advantage of the suppliers, the producers, it ultimately disadvantaged the consumer. And that's how you lose. That's how you lose, and you just make a fool of yourself. So I hope that doesn't happen. It probably will. And if it doesn't, it still doesn't mean that Google Alphabet should be broken up. What it does mean is that they need to be regulated, that these producers need to be protected. Like we talked about with Tim O'Reilly, when platforms hit that monopoly scale, they take advantage of the producers, of the creators, of the suppliers first. You need producer protections. And we've seen California AB5 try and fail at that with Uber drivers and et cetera, and gig workers. So that's a whole other thing, right? Once you can make the case that there's antitrust violation, what are the appropriate producer protections? And we've spoken about that in different places on the show. But it is company specific. It is case by case, right? These are very different businesses. These are very different companies. These are massive trillion-dollar companies. You can't just have a one-size-fits-all law or rule to regulate all kind of producer protections across all the platforms. No, it doesn't work that way. So it's a whole other debate. But I frankly don't even need to get into that, because I don't think they're going to get that far. I would love to be proven wrong. Do you think that the DOJ will try and pin this back on the consumer, or are they only going to keep this focus on the producer? What do you think? Thanks for joining us.